What if damage didn't just hurt? What if it's scarier? What if every combat permanence left damage behind? In today's Commander class, we're going to be talking about the keyword Wither, which turns creatures into long-term regret. Hey everyone, I am Joe, and in today's video we're going to be talking about Wither. I'll be explaining what Wither is, why Wither is or why Wither matters, showing off some of the rare and amazing cards with the keyword Wither. If you want to build Wither in your Commander decks, how you can go around doing that, and then explain why Wither isn't a very popular keyword. Then overall give my thoughts and opinions on Wither itself. So let's start off with what is Wither. Wither changes how damage works. Instead of normal combat damage, it turns it into -1/-1 counters. So it's kind of like poison, but just solely on your creatures. And when it comes to this, counters permanently stay. So if you have a 5/5 and you decide to block a 3/3 with Wither, you now have a 2/2 because it will have 3 -1/-1 counters on it. So when it comes to this, blockers constantly get shrinked until they are gone. So if there is big threats, you can constantly throw creatures with Wither at them and they'll eventually shrink down to nothing. Plus, because they are -1/-1 counters, there is different ways you can make those counters more and more with Proliferate and other cards that give additional -1/-1 counters on them. It's not explosive, it's slowly poisoning your opponent's creatures down to them having nothing at all. But then that explains, why does Wither matter? Wither matters because it's permanently lowering your opponent's creatures. So if they have a 10/10, you're sacrificing your 4/4 to turn their 10/10 into a 6/6. It also breaks the normal combat math. You then have to have this kind of additional, even though it's -1/-1 counters, thing when it comes to this, because if you proliferate also at instant speed, it could cause more problems and stuff like that. One of my favorite things about Wither is if a creature is indestructible because it has an indestructible counter or anything like that, which again, I'm pretty sure there's a commander class on indestructible. If not, there will be. It also destroys those creatures because it's -1/-1, not battle damage or combat damage, which gets around indestructible. It also gets around regeneration, which is a weird command that not many people use. And then depending on how you build the deck, you can have additional benefits by proliferating or adding more counters onto your opponent's creatures, which means they're going to die faster, and you could have it that you get +1/+1 counters. So again, their creatures are becoming weaker while yours are becoming stronger. But Wither is a mechanic that doesn't have many cards. That is kind of not the problem, but the biggest thing with it. But if you cannot think of any Wither cards from the top of your head, here is a selection I've brought out for use. You get cards just like Spinerock Tyrant. It's a 5-mana 6/6 with Wither and flying. So the cool thing about this dragon creature is that it copies your instant and sorceries and gives them both Wither. So if you shock and copy it, shock now does Wither. So again, if a creature has indestructible, you're then still getting rid of it. Giving your red damage spells Wither is a small but very powerful thing. Being able to get a copy of a spell, even if it's an extra turn or something, is great. However, this is mainly focused on red damage spells because you can get rid of a lot of things faster, and even if you don't get rid of something, they cannot go back to their original power and toughness. Hate Flayer is an elemental for 7 mana and it's a 5/5 that has Wither. To be honest, this card's actually not that bad because one, it has Wither so it can attack, dealing 5 Wither damage to something. However, for 3 mana you get to untap it and then deal damage equal to its power to target creature or player, which again, because it has Wither, will do the same. So technically, if you have 3 mana while you attack, you get a blocker still because it has pseudo vigilance, and also have done 10 damage separately. With Wither is a great thing because if something has, so if your opponent has a 8/8, you can attack a creature, putting a bunch of -1/-1 counters on it, letting this thing live, and then for 3 mana untapping it, putting 5 Wither counters on the 8/8, making it a 3/3, which means it cannot attack with the 8/8 without dying to this. Plus, with how elemental decks are going in the last year or 2 or 3, This thing is really good, especially because of the elemental, the damage, the pseudo vigilance, and the max 10 damage separated into two things. However, it is a lot of mana to pull off. Midnight Banshee, 6 mana for a 5/5 with Wither is okay at best. However, at the beginning of your go upkeep, it puts a -1/-1 counter on each non-black creature. So this is great in a pure black deck because you're at the beginning of each turn putting everything weaker, which again slowly but surely helps you. Then this itself puts 5 -1/-1 counters on things. Now, if you can make this indestructible, then this thing can go really hard. I actually say this would be really good in a Toxrill deck because, again, for 6 mana, you're slowly withering stuff down to get more slugs. Necro Skidder. 3 mana for a 1/4 with Wither is a great blocker. However, its other ability is where it shines. Again, I think this will go great in a Toxrill deck. If there's any other commander decks you think this will go well in, let me know in the comments down below. But whenever a creature an opponent controls with a -1/-1 counter on it dies, you get that creature. That is really good, especially if you're playing in, I say, like maybe a opponent's steal deck where you're stealing, like you can mill them or you can do other things and steal their creatures from their graveyard, because this goes great in there too, because you can just put -1/-1 counters on things, get them. So commanders like Captain Negroth will do good, Toxrill will also do good. I say a few ninja decks, especially the domain ninja decks, would go quite well with this card as well, depending on how you build it. Needle Spectre. For 3 mana, you get a 1/1 with 2 keywords, flying and Wither. Again, not the best, but depending on its ability, could make it go from quite bad to good. When this creature deals combat damage, they mill that many cards depending on how much damage is done. So for a 1/1, they mill 1 card, which again is good. However, when it comes to Wither, it's best that your opponent blocks, and 2, unless you're putting +1/+1 counters on this and wanting them to discard, I don't see this as a good card. It is very niche and quite difficult to pull off. You need to kind of make it unblockable a lot of the time. Stigma Lasher. For 2 mana, you get a 2/2 with Wither. So again, you're paying the amount of mana for its power and toughness, which makes it quite good, plus an additional keyword, which is Wither. Now again, as I said with Wither, you want your opponent to block with it mainly, so again, a 2/2 is not great. However, its ability is where it shines. This will be great in a lot of decks for getting the Wither part, mainly because if it deals combat damage to a player, that player can't gain life for the rest of the game, which means if you can put this with Secret Tunnel or Rogue's Passage or Access Tunnel, I think Access Tunnel does the same, you can make this unblockable and then they cannot gain life no matter what, which is a really cool ability. Again, with Wither, you want your opponents to block. With this, you want to do combat damage. So again, it is quite polar opposite. This I don't think is a great card. Village Pillager. 5 mana for a 5/5 is okay, especially because it has Wither. Again, this is great for your opponent's creatures that are 4 or less. But first, its first ability does 1 damage to each creature your opponent controls, which is great in a 4-player commander game. But because it's doing 1 damage, that means all of them get -1/-1 counters on them. For 5 mana, you're instantly putting something down and putting everything on the board that's not yours 1 weaker. Then, when something dies, you create a tapped treasure token. Now, I would love this rather as blue or black, but I understand why it's red. This in a Toxrill deck would go hard. I have my own Toxrill deck. It's not even fully optimized. There's a lot of cards that I just threw in there just because they're just good. I could go hard on the thing. This, if it was blue or black, would definitely go in because, again, 5 mana, putting something down, something may die, especially in a 4-player game. Plus, I get a bunch of treasure tokens from this. This would be broken if it was one of those 2 colors, but it being red makes sense with the treasure tokens. I do think this is a really good card. So when it comes to building a Wither deck, how should you build it? When it comes to Wither, it works really well with -1/-1 counter synergy. So pretty much a load of cards that go, you get additional -1/-1 counters. Whenever this deals damage, it gets -1/-1 counters. All creatures get -1/-1 counters, and stuff like that. Proliferate goes great. Karn's Bastion, cards that let you proliferate in the colors needed. Counter doubling, now it's hard with because most of the counter doublings are white and green. However, there is some, I say, in other colors or are less kind of well known. But again, if you want to put this in a 3, 4 or 5 color deck, double counters go great, especially something like, we'll say, Dublin Season or Potential Lives. I can't remember the other green card that's like half of Dublin Season, but there is a few cards that let you double the amount of counters on when things enter. So again, it works well with if you put a card down that gives everything -1/-1 counters, it then doubles it, which again is one step closer to winning. And then with that dragon, a lot of damage based removal. Again, you can just put in a lot of red damage spells and just go, cool, this is on the field, everything's going to die. And another great thing is when things hit the graveyard, you get benefits or do damage to other people or their creatures. A lot of these would be great in mono black decks, mono red decks, Rakdos or Jund decks. Wither isn't fast, it's kind of a lot of setup and then just a slow burn while people not being able to do anything. The best way to kind of put it is in like anime when someone has the poison ability and then like halfway through the battle people are realizing they're being poisoned because they're like, why am I slowing down and stuff? That is Wither in kind of a nutshell. So if you're not into big hitting decks and want something kind of grindy but you kind of have to play it right and kind of strategize, Wither is a good keyword ability. But with it being a good keyword and ability, why don't people use it? Mainly, it is an older mechanic. It has been around for a good while, so not many players really know it or fully understand it. I've seen a lot of people that think Wither goes, oh yeah, it just does -1/-1 damage and stuff like that, but it's not amazingly broken. It's not heavily supported, however, with new cards with more proliferate and more -1/-1 counters, it is getting stronger. However, people just kind of see it in the old version where there's not many cards of it and not much synergy with them. Infect is a very well-known keyword ability that is absolutely amazing and does a lot and wins games, to the point that a lot of people, second they go, I have an Infect deck, everyone goes, please no, I want to have fun. So again, it's kind of in that family, so people will hear Wither and go, oh, does that mean you have an Infect deck? Like, can we not? So there is that kind of aspect too. It's slower than poison, but still quite annoying. There's no really great commanders with Wither, or I think any commanders with Wither or help with Wither. You could potentially make a broken Wither deck, but the commander will have to do something different. But my final thoughts when it comes to Wither itself. Wither is not flashy at all. It's a slow burn, which a lot of people don't like. There's not many cards with it or any good kind of commander decks with it either. It's not explosive or combo heavy, which are the main two things people do enjoy. And it's kind of put off with Infect. It's kind of like in the kind of the family members we don't like talking about. Now with saying it, it is ridiculously strong if they had more cards with it or better cards. However, it's hard to balance because you don't want it to be pretty much Infect 2.0. People will start getting scared that all their creatures are getting weaker and weaker slowly, and then will start then focusing more on you than someone who has the big massive green dinosaur or dragon, because it's easy to get rid of their one big thing than it is to get rid of your 4 or 5 things doing 1 or 2 damage each turn. So overall, I'm going to give this a 6.1. When it comes to Wither, let me know what you think of this keyword, if there's any cards that you want me to talk about individually, or any keyword mechanics you want me to do in other commander classes. Let me know if you've built any Wither decks or anything like that down in the comments down below. And while you're there, remember to like and subscribe and do all that YouTubey stuff we always ask for. And as always, if you'd like this commander's class, I have last week's commander class here, a playlist of all the commander classes I do here, and a subscribe button here, and I will see you all in the next video.